dangerous. They're taking the boulders off, you know what that means.
Well, no,
Making it through.
that's an argument. See, you have to make a consistent set of assumptions here. A lot of the
we learned today. Can you imagine?
There's a lot of objection to de-alerting forces, as it's called.
Right.
Is that, oh, it's escalatory if we go back onto alert. But we would de-alert our forces only in the context of reserving our forces for a truly retaliatory mission. Okay, and so then, in other words, basically a no first use policy. So then, it isn't going to be any surprise if somebody nukes us. Most people are going to assume we're going to be pretty pissed off, and we're going to do something about it. And so if we start taking the boulders off at that point, okay,
of course,
there's not any surprise there, and there's not going to be an escalatory surprise at that point. Okay? So if you make consistent assumptions, that argument goes away.
Can I just discuss how you seem to earlier focusing on the potential of changing the regional policy? Can you explain how that might change? I mean, the one arena theater where clearly we're still at a very sort of nuke-on-nuke forces is the Korean Peninsula, where the overwhelming conventional force superiority in the north forces the U.S. and its allies to rely on nuclear weapons as a deterrent. There's been no change in that. As a matter of fact, there seems to be even more escalation of tensions. Can you talk a bit about that, how that could be affected? But also, I guess I'm less familiar with other regional strategies, Syria and the rest, that may seem more likely since there is no, as you said, no nuclear competitor there. And no conventional.
Well, it's interesting you start with Northeast Asia, because Northeast Asia is actually an area where we pulled back our nuclear weapons very quickly after the end of the Cold War. We used to have tactical nuclear weapons deployed in South Korea. They were moved out in a particular effort to nudge North Korea toward a non-nuclear-free peninsula. The deterrence hasn't suffered in the region, is the conclusion of people in the Pentagon. They're completely confident, the kind of posture they have in the Pacific, and don't think they need nuclear weapons forward deployed out there to be able to do that job. In Europe, you have a different situation, where we still have about 200 nuclear weapons deployed in 5 European countries. Weapons that have completely lost their mission.
Can you run through the list for those of us who may not have
Germany,
Turkey,
the Netherlands, Belgium, Italy, and Turkey. And NATO itself has for many, many years said that those weapons do not serve any military purpose. They have no military mission. It's entirely a political deployment. And the political is sort of the glue between Europe and the United States, the ultimate security guarantee that if something happens, those weapons there ensure that the United States will come and save them. That is a line of argument that goes all the way back to the Cold War, when those weapons, tactical weapons, were supposed to be what linked the United States to Europe in case the Soviet Union attacked with overwhelming conventional forces, etc. Today, it's in my view irrelevant. It's more a matter of tradition and political bureaucratic inertia that those weapons are still there. But that's another example of a regional mission. Then there's the more sort of generic vision, the generic mission, if you will, in the region, which is the one that's where nuclear weapons serves as a deterrent against weapons of mass destruction, countries that have weapons of mass destruction. And that list has been bigger, now it's gotten smaller, and who knows where it's going to go in the future. But the three of the countries that are in the war plan are regional adversaries without nuclear weapons.
And the theory behind that is you use chemical, biological, we will use nuclear weapons.
Correct. You use anything that is a weapons of mass destruction. That is our declaratory policy. We reserve the right to respond with nuclear weapons. But it's not just a retaliatory policy, because in fact, what happened during the Bush administration was that the deterrence mission against those kind of states was taken up a notch. They thought after 9/11 that a retaliatory policy was not enough, that you needed to have a very proactive, preemptive policy. Shortly after that, we saw a requirement to put specific strike options into the strategic war plan being added because of guidance from the White House. There is a picture in here, by the way, on page 4. That slide is from a briefing, an update to the strategic war plan from March 2003. That update added regional states to the strategic war plan, not just sort of regional plans for the regional commanders, but at the strategic level. And what was interesting, if you can see all the names and things that are, of course, deleted, but they forgot to delete the pictures. So, you know, I put the little red dots on there. So, so there are those types of mission. One is the umbrella mission, the extended deterrence mission over allies, Japan, South Korea, and the other one is the more generic deterrence mission against adversaries with WMD.
Can I ask one last thing on this? You keep mentioning the 3 non-nuclear states that are part of that. Do we know what those are?
My guess is that they are Iran and Syria. North Korea is also on the list, but they have some nuclear capability. And then there's the 6th item on the list has been a mystery until fairly recently. We were trying to pin down who could that country be. And we came up with all sorts of fantastic suggestions and didn't quite know. And it wasn't until I ran that by some people out at Stratcom that some of them told me during a little dinner that think 9/11. And so that means something pretty stupid to me.
Yeah.
That our nuclear weapons in some shape or form have a role against a WMD attack that can either be done by terrorists or terrorists in connection with a regional state. I suspect it's the latter. That is probably as far as I could imagine anyone would want to push a requirement for a nuclear mission.